Hi, everybody. It's John Galante, president of AE Ventures, the folks that produce the TecHome Builder Summits and the online TecHome Builders and digital content for the home building industry on technology. We're back with another webcast, People You Should Know segment. And we'll be talking to Barry Hensley today, who's the general manager of NorthStar Luxury Homes in Frisco, Texas. Barry, you and I have known each other since the first TecHome Builder Summit in Austin in 2014. You're definitely a builder who's leaning forward in technology for your luxury clients. I think one of the things I really appreciate about you, first of all, you're just a nice guy. It's been great to get to know you and build an industry friendship over 5-6 years here. But I think you and I have worked together to try to educate the technology industry about what the requirements are for success with home builders, whether that's integrators or other upstream vendor partners. So I really appreciate, because that's, I think, part of our mission is to help builders go faster and farther with technology. But another part of our mission is to make your requirements better known to the technology industry, which has lots of different channels that it's working through and hasn't necessarily paid as strong attention as they should to what the process requirements are for working with builders. So I appreciate the volunteer efforts and the time that you've made available for us to get that word out as well. Why don't we start out? You could just give us a little bit of a backgrounder on NorthStar Luxury Homes, what your clients are like, what kind of homes you're building, how you're organized to do the business.
Mm-hmm. So, John, thanks for having me. I've appreciated knowing you for the last 6 years. Your TecHome summits have been immensely valuable to me personally and to our company. I've really enjoyed attending them. And I remember that first one in Austin. I have very fond memories of that first one in Austin. That was a great show. And so we've continued to support you throughout the years because we really see value in the shows that you bring. And we're a little bit disappointed with 2020, as all of us are, that we've had to change so many plans this year, but we're going to get through it. And I think that's had an influence on the home building industry too. We can talk a little bit more about that as we go through this.
Sure.
But to let you know who I am and how I got started, I started the building business in 1979. And fortunately, I had a mentor who walked me through the process and held my hand every step of the way, which is immensely valuable to have somebody that would do that. And I've always prided myself throughout the years of trying to stay ahead of the curve as far as developments in the building industry and being able to embrace new technologies and new methodologies and new procedures. And I've always specialized in custom home building. So I'm a small custom home builder. We build 3, maybe 4 luxury residences per year. My typical buyer is a move-up buyer who's owned 3 or 4 homes already. And they're going to be, they're going to be mid 40s to mid 50s. They've got kids. Some of them, the kids are grown. I've built for a few empty nesters, but typically this is someone who's making a very large expenditure, over $1 million, sometimes over $2 million here in the Texas area. It's pretty good size homes. And my customer is interested in quality, probably is number one, and they're interested in value, as all customers are. That nobody wants to overpay for a home or pay for something that they're not getting. My customers are very sophisticated. They're smart. I work with a lot of people who are either business owners or in executive positions with businesses. And so they know what they're talking about. They know what they want. They've owned 2 or 3 homes before. They know what they're looking for in a home. And when we present them with technology, they're very open to it because these people use technology in their business and their personal lives now. I can't remember how many years ago. Maybe you could tell me how many years ago Apple introduced the first smartphone. I think it was like, gosh, was that 2006 now?
Yeah, mid 2000s is what I want to say. Yeah, it's been 15 years or thereabouts.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's been about 14, 15 years. And of course, that created a whole revolution because we now have an interface that we can hold in our hands and talk to the world.
Right.
And when I talk to my customers about technology, one of the things that they absolutely demand is that they can use it in the palm of their hand. And that's kind of where everything is headed and has been headed for so many years. The the phone is now the interface to our world.
Yeah.
And so we've been very successful about working with our systems integrators, our AV companies that we work with here in the Dallas area, about providing them with technology that does integrate seamlessly with what they're used to. And when you talk about an interface, my customers expect that interface to be their phone. And even though a lot of these platforms have other ways to do it with a tablet mounted on the wall or through your computer, they still want it to be able to work through their phone. They want it to be simple.
Yeah.
But they do embrace it. I can tell you right at the top of the list, to kind of shortcut this process to the number one issue for my customers is security. They're always, I never get a no when I talk to my customers about alarm systems and video surveillance. They're always putting that at the top of the list. Of course, there's other things that fall in behind that, but that's the number one thing that we see from our customers.
Yeah.
That want security.
Well, before we dig in on your play with tech, just give us a little bit more color on your journey in home building. And you did have a stint with technology companies in the late 90s, early 2000s. I'm curious about that and whether that really drove you to be a little bit more tech forward when you got back to the building focus in the later 2000s.
Yeah, it absolutely did, John. I had a time there where I got out of the home building business in the late 90s and spent 3 or 4 years working in high tech. I moved out to Silicon Valley out in California and teamed up with a friend of mine in a startup company. And that was a very interesting experience working with venture capitalists and raising money to build a tech company. I had spent some time working with software and various types of technology, but this was the first time I actually held an executive position in a company that was focused strictly on technology. And then we had the dot-com bomb, which I got to experience right there in the middle of Silicon Valley, which is very interesting because one day it was, things were booming one day and it just dried up overnight. So it's a very interesting time.
Well, the TecHome Builder brand was born in the dot-com boom in 2001. Kidding. Yeah, this is when we launched the publication when I was at Publishing, which is we eventually spun the TecHome Builders assets out from to AE Ventures in the late 2000s. But it was 2001 we launched the TecHome Builder brand, and we were broad-based. We were home technology such as it was in 2001, and it was mostly about structured wiring as far as the builder was concerned. We were hopeful that things like home automation and even multi-room audio would start to get some traction, but it was really about structured wiring more than anything else. And then the other piece, because of that era when we launched, was the solutions for the builder, right? If you remember, at the International Builder Show in 2001, there were 100,000 square feet of exhibit space for the tech side of things. Most of it was dot-com companies that were going to disintermediate the traditional supply chain in the home building industry with e-commerce type approaches. And 2 years later, the vast majority of those companies didn't exist because they were, business plans on a napkin that were funded by funny money during the dot-com boom. But we had that dual mission. And then when we relaunched TecHome Builder in 2013 at AE Ventures, we came out of the box with more of a pure focus on the home technology side of things, because the footprint of technology had substantially broadened by then, right? It was way more than structured wiring, and technology was resident in all the different subsystems in the home. And it's just in the last couple of years that we've gotten back to the solutions piece for builders as well, focusing on the marketing and sales solutions for now, but eventually we'll get into the enterprise resource planning and, broader set of applications for design and production as well. But that, it's a little sideshow there. While you were, out in Silicon Valley for the dot-com boom, TecHome Builder was actually born in the middle of that.
That's very interesting. There were a lot of innovations that came out of that period of time. A lot of what we take for granted today, especially you mentioned e-commerce. You take companies like Amazon that were born back in that same period of time. And e-commerce was something brand new. We cloned the term B2B and B2C and all of that. And nobody knew what it was. It's all brand new. But now we've capitalized on all of that, and it's become integral to our daily lives. Everything that we do now is based on the technology that was developed back during that period of time.
Yeah. So we started in on the technology you're building into homes. You're saying security, physical security is pretty much a standard piece of the equation with your clients. What else would you characterize as either, I know you're a custom builder, so you're kind of starting from scratch with everybody, but there still tends to be a baseline that is offered to the clients. Anything beyond the security piece? The networks side of things, I'm assuming, is pretty standard at this point.
We do. We include a robust local area network in every home, which consists, of course, of some kind of router to an internet service provider, and then wireless access points throughout the home. And when you're building a 6,000 square foot home, you got to make sure that the customer, they're familiar with the term 5 bars because they're used to what their phone gives them. So they're always walking around the home looking for 5 bars. And so we have to make sure that we put a very robust and a secure home network in, because now people are worried, especially with voice recognition technology, things like Amazon's Echo. People are worried about people intruding into their home network. But we give
physical and cyber security are pretty standard included.
We put a robust router in that gives them the ability to filter out, the phishing attacks and denial of service attacks and things that people would try to get in their network from the outside. Cool. But yes, we provide them with a robust network, because let's face it, everything that we do today is connected somehow. Yeah. And so the customer's got to have the ability to get to that data all the time. They've got to have a full-time connection to that data, and they've got to know that it's secure. And
how about HVAC control? Are you doing a communicating smart thermostat in almost every new home these days?
We do. That becomes a standard feature as a smart thermostat. I can tell you that I haven't seen a lot of interaction from my customers with HVAC controls. Once it's set up and running, they pretty much leave it alone. Yeah. They might turn it down a degree or two when they're having guests come over, because they're going to fill up their house with bodies generating a lot of heat. But for the most part, once we get it programmed to fit their needs, they don't mess with it too much. And we build a very energy efficient home. So the days of us putting in a programmable setback thermostat, of course, they all come that way now. The technology is standard, but the days of actually setting that thermostat for somebody to leave home and have the thermostat automatically raise the temperature a few degrees, we don't recommend that our customers do that at all. We recommend they keep it at a constant temperature, which helps regulate the humidity at the same time, and leave it that way. And then, of course, with 2020 and more people working from home than ever before, there's typically always someone in the home. It's rare that at the caliber of homes that we're building that we have a home that's unoccupied for a great portion of the day. There's usually people in and out all the time.
Yeah. Are you doing smart locks at least on one of the doors? Yeah.
Yeah. And the smart lock, it's interesting that you mentioned just one of the doors, pardon me, because that's typically what it gets down to. And we're putting the smart lock on typically not for the homeowner. We're putting it on for either their guests or their, the ability to let the UPS guy in or let their maid in or let, a guest in. The homeowners are always coming in through the garage, and they use the garage door opener for that. But
what about smart garage door openers? I mean, are you getting into the Wi-Fi connected garage door openers?
Absolutely. Yeah, we standardized on LiftMaster garage door openers, which have the MyQ system, and there's an app right there on the phone that shows them how long their door has been open or closed. It shows them the status. They can open and close it remotely. So if the customer leaves and goes to the grocery store and forgets that they left the door open, they can just check the app on their phone and close it.
I think I noticed in your LinkedIn profile, lighting design is a course that you're actually teaching with the local HBA there. And what are you doing with lighting? There's a lot of technology in lighting these days.
There is. There's both lighting controls, and then there's the lighting source itself, and both have been changing rapidly over the last few years. We wrote at the local Home Builder Association, we actually wrote some curricula for a course that we taught on changing from traditional lighting to LED lighting. And LED lighting is, as much as we all know the term now, 4 or 5 years ago, it was new to everyone, especially in the home building industry. And I'll be the first one to say that home builders are pretty slow about adopting new technology. It takes a while for it to filter its way into the industry. But we taught courses there to the builders that were members of the association on how to adopt LED lighting into their building plans. And of course, we had to take into consideration color and lumens and load. And you put a dimmer on LED lighting, it doesn't work the same way as a dimmer on incandescent lighting. So there was a lot that we had to do with that. And at NorthStar Luxury Homes, we standardized on LED lighting about 4 years ago. We do 100% of our homes are lit with LED lights.
And are you doing the lighting design yourself at your home building company, or are you partnered with an electrical contractor or lighting designer on that?
So my architect is very adept at doing lighting design, and then we will occasionally bring in a lighting designer for specific uses. One project that we had in McKinney, Texas, had a significant amount of exterior lighting. And we brought a lighting designer in on that one to make sure that we were lighting it properly. One of the things that you can get carried away with on exterior lighting is too much of it, because at night you don't need very many lumens to light something up. So we brought in a lighting designer on that. But for the most part, most of our homes, it's my architect who lays out the lighting plan. And then I work with my architect and my electrician to spec out the color of the lighting and how many lumens that we're going to light the space with.
Yeah, I feel like it's a situation where the technology is almost ahead of the tactics, right? There's so many things you can do with lighting and lighting control now. And, sometimes the risk is, I remember, you and I go back a ways. I remember when desktop publishing started, right?
I do too.
It's like, you could choose different fonts and you would get these documents and there were 17 different fonts and sizes. Like, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do that. So I almost feel like that's where we are with lighting right now, is there's so many choices, and some folks will overdo and some folks are just overwhelmed by the amount of choices and just stand back from it. But I think there's a lot of potential appreciation from the homeowner, from the occupant, if we can start to get built-in LED lighting right and understand how to work with the color temperatures and the color intensities effectively for the homeowner's experience.
I would agree that the technology probably is way ahead of the adoption. My interior designer that I work with is very good at specifying the proper color, but I have worked with some that are not. I've worked with some that don't even understand the difference between a 3,000 degree bulb or a 4,000 degree bulb, and it does make a difference. But the ability to change the color of the lighting, you're probably familiar with Philips Hue. I think that was the first one to hit the market that had the ability to actually change the color. And now they've got several out that will allow you to change to different, I don't know if you'd call it a hue or an actual color, but to change white from warm white to cool white to bright white within the same fixture. You can dial it in.
Right.
And that I think is something that may become important to interior designers.
Yeah.
But I know that we've built a couple of homes where the interior designer specified a certain Sherwin-Williams color for the wall paint. And then with the lighting in, which was also specified either by the architect or the interior designer, the paint didn't look right because the color of the lighting was wrong. So being able to tune it to the decor within the home, I think, is something that could be important to interior designers. But I think once it's tuned properly, I can't see homeowners changing that much.
How do you
we
do
have
it?
tunable bulbs is a fantastic thing.
But how do you have the consultation with the client, pre-construction and maybe even post-occupancy to get that lighting experience to be what they're looking for, even maybe to delight them and get just beyond what they were looking for?
So, John, it's usually the last thing on their list. They haven't even thought about it, because how many people go to a home? How many times has the home buying experience ever included a discussion about lighting? It doesn't. The volume builders give you a package of lighting that they've predetermined for you. And that's what homeowners are used to having when they buy a home or have one built. They're just used to having whatever the builder provides.
Yeah.
So we have a discussion with them and we talk about different ways to light the home. And I remember from some of the summits that I've been with you, that it's important to change the lighting based on the time of day. You know, you want a lot of overhead lighting during the day, and you want to eliminate the overhead lighting and go to lower level lamps and things at night when you're in the home. And we talked to our customers about that. We talked about accent lighting. We talked about lighting artwork that they may have. And then as far as color goes, the main thing we do on color is we talk to them about their color palette for their home, whether they're going with a warm or a cool color palette. And that immediately steers us toward, you know, either a warm white bulb or a cool white bulb as far as how we're going to light the home.
Cool.
But lighting specific areas becomes important when we talk to them about their lifestyle. Do they entertain? You know, what about their TV watching habits? And do they read a lot? You know, how are they going to use the room? What type of room is it? That impacts what we do with lighting.
Very cool. It's funny, but we did one of these people you should know with Greg Hardwick from Florida, who he met at the TecHome Builder summits. But he lighting is a particular focus for him too. From of the technology stack, lighting is key for him. What about in the air quality realm? Are you kind of stepping up the high tech on the IAQ side of things? Give me a sense of that.
John, the first thing we do is we build a very tight home. And we build using typical green building standards by keeping out the volatile organic compounds and things that you wouldn't want in your home. So we start out by building a very tight home, and then of course we meet the code requirement to bring in fresh air, either mechanically through the air conditioning system or through an ERV. And then we also go a step further. We try to tackle the humidity problem with either putting a dehumidifier in or putting in a variable speed air conditioning system that also has the ability to control humidity. But I'm glad you mentioned indoor air quality, because I think it's something that is typically overlooked. I think in the home building industry as a whole, not enough attention is paid to indoor air quality.
Yeah.
And when people are uncomfortable in their home, it's typically because somebody didn't pay enough attention to the indoor air quality. They didn't get the air conditioning sized properly, or they didn't get the air itself distributed properly. But at this point in time, we're controlling indoor air quality by sealing up the home as tightly as possible, filtering it properly, controlling the humidity, and then sizing the air conditioning systems properly.
Yeah, it sounds like you're pretty rigorous there. I think air quality is an interesting realm. You know, I'm a communications guy at heart, so you know it's like you see the world based on what your strengths or your approach is, and there's a particular communications challenge with air quality because you can't see it, right? And I have this. It's become somewhat legendary on one of our pub crawls with John Fisher, who was with April Air at the time. I had a little bit of a rant about discussions about ASHRAE 62.2.
Yeah,
that's where at the industry level, it's become codes in long lists of allergens, et cetera, that are not penetrable to the buyer, right? And we need to figure out how to quickly communicate what's the difference between stale and fresh air, and what does it do to you physiologically to be in fresh air versus stale air. And so there's, I think, some work to be done in partnership between builders and industry to really tackle some of the marketing challenges of indoor air quality. Certainly, there's more awareness around it because we've got this airborne pandemic, but there's better storytelling to be done there for sure.
I would agree with you. I'm glad you mentioned marketing, because it's the way you tell the story that matters to the customer. And if I start talking to my customer about ASHRAE 62.2 and MERV 11 filters, and their eyes glaze over like a cow staring at a new gate for the first time, it's not a pleasant experience. I lose them. I completely lose them. But if I start
cow staring at a new gate for the first time?
Yeah, you've never heard that.
Well, that's a Texas metaphor.
That's a Texas thing, yes.
We don't have that metaphor in Boston. We didn't have it in Chicago where I grew up either.
No, you probably didn't. It's definitely a Texas thing. You know, goes along with that saying, somebody's all hat and no cattle. You know, that's it.
I've heard that one. I get that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
But if I lose them, that's my fault. I haven't communicated the message properly. So I can't talk about MERV 11 and ASHRAE 62.2. What I have to talk about is comfort, cleanliness, health. If I talk to my customer about building them a healthy home, they relate to that. If I talk to them about building a clean home, a comfortable home, they relate to that. Then I can get into explaining how we get to that. I'm glad you mentioned April Air, because they now have a unit that works as an ERV and a dehumidifier in one unit. Fantastic product, because now I don't have to put two separate products in. So doing that.
We'll have to insert a commercial from April Air here in the podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. Make sure if you put their logo in there, you get a couple bucks out of them for putting the logo in there. You can tell them I endorsed them.
Okay.
But good company, good products. Not the only one out there, obviously.
Yep.
But this is a product we've needed for some time. Is one that'll act as a fresh air exchange and a dehumidifier at the same time. Especially in the Texas market. We wake up every morning with 90% humidity. And if we're bringing in fresh air, we got to do something to get the water out of the air before we dump it in the house, or we're just not maintaining good indoor air quality.
Let's talk a little bit about the kind of AV realm. What are you seeing, particularly in the wake of the pandemic? First of all, it's to a great extent an AV application, work from home, right? The home office now being more than an after hours accessory, and with all of the video conferencing, I mean, are you seeing folks move towards building streaming studios and really having the AV set up to have a more professional appearance if they're doing corporate meetings and such? Is that trend starting to percolate up in your business yet?
I would say it's percolating up through the industry. I don't know that I've personally experienced it, but I do know one builder who had a hard time selling a home because he didn't have a study. And the 4 or 5 people who didn't buy it, he finally sold it, but the 4 or 5 people who didn't buy it commented that they were looking for a home with a study because they're working from home now.
Right.
And so working from home has changed how people view their home. As you know, the residential side, single family side of the industry is on fire right now because so many people are working from home and they're looking for a bigger space, or a space that will accommodate the fact that they do need to work from home. But the ability to work from home not only requires space, but it requires infrastructure. So that robust home network is important, that they rely on that. And then being able to have a space that they can accommodate working from home. Like you said, you see my messy office behind me, but at least I have an office. And if a home doesn't have an office in it, it's going to be tougher for people that have to work from home. So I think as home builders, we have to consider the fact that I don't think this is a one shot. I think COVID has shown corporations that they can accomplish their goal with people while people work at home. So this is going to be permanent. Sure. Are people going to go back to offices? Yes. Some of them will. But are a whole bunch of them going to continue to work from home? Absolutely.
So what about AV for entertainment? I don't even know to what extent you play in that category. Are you doing dedicated home theater rooms? Are you working with your integrator to provide high performance AV zones? I mean, there's a lot of folks entertaining themselves with streaming media and binge watching of TV and movies versus, being out on the town. Are you starting to see that demand? Are you responding to that?
We always give our customers a robust AV experience with both video and audio. Audio throughout the house, video controls, and everything. Everything is going to streaming services. I don't know if you've watched what's going on with Disney, but they launched Disney Plus. They've got more subscribers after 6 months than they expected to have after 2 years.
Thanks to Hamilton.
Pardon me?
Thanks to Hamilton. They got a bunch of those when they released Hamilton, the play on there.
That's right. And then you might have heard the announcement this week that Warner Brothers is going to release all their 2021 films direct to HBO Max. So they're bypassing the theater and going straight to streaming services. So that's critical that we provide an infrastructure that supports that, because that's what people are going towards. And they're not they're moving away from direct TV like rats off a sinking ship. AT&T bought that company, and now they're trying to find the next sucker that they can sell it to. And I don't think they're going to be able to.
We'll work the Dish commercial in now.
Exactly.
Call up my friend Frank D. Philippus. We're going to put a Dish spot here now. So we could go on and on. You're so knowledgeable about technology for a builder. I mean, you do put it into the user's terms, but you're also, I can see so knowledgeable about what's going on in terms of the trend lines. And I think, you're in that upper 1 or 2% in terms of your ability to talk tech in a relatable way. So it's been an interesting conversation in that regard. But tell me about, your favorite project from a technology standpoint where you feel like you really nailed it for your client with the technology piece, and it's something that's more robust but also useful to that client. Can you think of a project that you'd characterize that way?
That's a tough one because we do almost all of them with the same infrastructure, and then how much the customer wants to layer on top of that infrastructure is up to them. But the one that has the most tech in it is one that we finished last year in Addison, Texas. It's about a 6,000 square foot single story ranch style home, kind of a semi-contemporary style home. And everything is centralized in that home. We built a dedicated room for the AV equipment, and it's got a typical equipment rack in there, one of the 19-inch wide equipment racks. And that rack is full from top to bottom with all the equipment. So there's no cable boxes anywhere in the house. All the remote control signals go back to that closet. And everything, all the way from their music to their video to their thermostat controls to their security system to their cameras, everything is in that closet. So that one has the most centralized, the most integrated technology that we've done. And it was simply because a customer decided that they just wanted to go ahead and take advantage of everything that we had planned for.
Yeah. Cool. So what are you looking at on the horizon in terms of technology? What do you think is going to be an important next technology that you need to look at incorporating in your homes?
If I had this conversation with somebody just the other day, and this is a tough question to answer because we just came through, or we're in the middle of coming through, one of the most trying years in our country's recent history. And what kind of societal changes is that going to make on a permanent basis that are going to affect the home building industry? And I don't know. Somebody had mentioned to me with even elementary and high school students being able to be taught from home. Is that going to become an option in the future going forward? Are there going to have to be homes with places dedicated for the children to do their studies online during the day rather than going off to a school? Certainly, it's going to affect higher education because we're already figuring out that a lot of higher education can go to a distance learning model. And of course, the home's going to have to accommodate that. I guess if I had a crystal ball and I knew what was coming, John, I wouldn't be in the home building business anymore. I'd be predicting trends. But I can say that the home probably is going to, it has become and is going to continue to be one of the most important spaces for people is going to be their home.
And what's your advice for a luxury builder who wants to up their tech game?
Well, I would say look at it from two perspectives. Look at it from the eyes of the customer and look at it from the eyes of your tech integrator, because a tech integrator will kill you if you don't have the right one. I mean, they'll bury you. And you don't want that. So you got to have a good tech integrator, and then look at it from the eyes of the customer. So don't sell tech, sell lifestyle. Yeah. And when you're talking to your customer about technology, talk about what it does to their lifestyle. Don't talk about how cool the doorbell camera is. Talk about how the fact that they can be on vacation and when the UPS driver drops off a package, they can see it. Gotcha. And they can talk in real time back to the UPS driver at the front door, and they can tell him, hey, leave the package there. I'll be out in a minute to get it. As far as the UPS driver knows, they're home. Talk to them about how when their daughter comes home from school, she's getting home at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Parents aren't home yet. She lets herself in. Talk to them about how the camera that monitors the front door takes a 30-second clip and emails it to them automatically so they know that the daughter is home. Talk to them about how when she disarms the alarm system, they can tell by the code that was put in who came and went. That's lifestyle.
Sounds like you've thought about this stuff and said that a few times.
I have thought about it and said it a few times. But technology for technology's sake is a waste of time. Technology that improves someone's life is what we need to focus on. Yeah. You mentioned indoor air quality earlier, and I'm a big proponent of good indoor air quality. And you put proper tech in, And you talk now you don't have to talk about VOCs because nobody knows what a VOC is. You and I do, but our customers don't. But you can talk to them about having a healthy, comfortable home. They can relate to that. So any kind of tech that you're going to sell to a customer, you got to put it in terms of their lifestyle, how it's going to impact them. Don't talk about routers and access points and 5G. I mean, well, maybe 5G. Verizon's done a good enough job marketing 5G that people do know what that means. But just market tech as it impacts the customer's lifestyle. That's how to sell it.
Great advice. Hey, thanks so much for being generous with your time with us again, and stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you sometime in 2021, I hope, at a TecHome Builder Summit. I know we will. And again, Barry, thanks for sharing your insights with the market. We really appreciate it.
Well, John, I've appreciated knowing you all these years. Thanks for having me on your webcast or podcast or however you're doing this, and I'll be happy to help you out anytime that I can in the future.
Take care.